Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA front office show. Yes, we are here today. Going to break down the latest around the NBA. Keith, is there any, we've been starting the last few shows with a weather update. Is there any weather related news we need to get into?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only things now we just have a better sense of the timing of stuff. We are right. It's been raining all day today here in Florida, in Central Florida, but that's unrelated to the hurricane. There's another storm in front of it that has been just dumping rain on us. But it's gonna start getting the outer bands later this afternoon, this evening. We'll start feeling some of that, and then overnight it's gonna make landfall, and then we're gonna get basically buried in this thing all day throughout the day on Thursday. So we'll see. I'm gonna guess we're probably not gonna have a show tomorrow. That would be my guess. If all the indicators are there, we'll probably lose power at some point overnight tonight. And then it's just a matter of how long we'll be without power. But it's we, like I said before, we've done everything we can. The neighborhood looks like they've done what they can do. So we're ready. We get all of our devices charging up. We've got just everything ready to go as best we can to be ready for this thing. But as it's right now, it's like a rainy day. Like we're just kind of hanging out, like it's wait and see mode, and it's just kind of how.
Right. All you can do at the moment, and again, we'll be thinking of you tonight. Hopefully, everything goes well, and the storm passes over, and it doesn't end up being too bad. But yeah, I mean, looking at the path, it's still it looks like it's moved maybe a little bit south. Is that right?
It keeps going back and forth. So like
Okay.
it's basically you could see the cone around the path. It is
Uh-huh.
like that's like it's gonna be somewhere in there. Like that will tighten up again as over the course of the day today. The cone keeps getting smaller and smaller, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for now it does look like it's gonna be pretty well over us. The bummer part is it stayed relatively strong, even though it has to some extent weakened.
Yeah.
But it is going to hit as a 3-4, which means it's going to pass over us as probably a 2, which that's normally this far inland in Florida in the peninsula, we're usually in a spot where we get them as like 1s or even strong tropical storms. So coming through as a 2 is a little bit different, but again, we've done what we can do. People evacuate to Orlando. For all those who suggested, you got to get out, you got to leave. This is where people come to, and we've got a whole host of reasons it's not practical for us to leave either. There's no, trust me, there's no, we're tough in that statement. There's reasons why we're staying. So we're just, gonna do our best here over the next couple of days, and we'll see everybody on the other side.
All right. Well, hopefully that means, and again, we're anticipating probably not being able to do a show tomorrow, but hopefully that means you're back and good for a live front office Friday.
I hope
Let's hope for
we'll
that.
see. If not,
We'll
maybe
see.
I'll do a drop in from the car or something like that
Yeah, there we go.
on the phone or something.
We'll have to figure something out. But yeah, I'm glad, we know it's going to hit a little later today. So, stay safe. Stay safe, man. I hope
Yeah,
this works out. I'll be texting you and getting updates and all that kind of stuff.
no doubt.
Um, all right, let's get into some of the latest around the NBA. I guess we got some bad news. Dante Exum out 3 months. We talked about that wrist injury the other day. So the Mavs are going to be without him for 3 months now. Keith, how do they? The phrase "weather the storm" comes to mind, and I guess I've just got meteorology on the mind. How do they get through this without Exum? Do they have the pieces requisite to do so?
Yeah, I think they should be okay, right? They have Spencer Dinwiddie there as the backup ball handler,
Okay.
so he'll take on that role. And then as the backup 2 guard, you can now play Jaden Hardy, who's been in the mix at
Mm-hmm.
times. Off the Mavs bench over the last couple of seasons, and then Quentin Grimes, who was acquired in the trade where they sent out Tim Hardaway Jr. It was mostly a salary dump, but they got Grimes back, and Grimes was somebody that the Mavs very much said, "Hey, this wasn't just a." Hey, take more of our bad salary and we'll take him back. Like they like Grimes. So my guess is between those 3 guys, they're going to eat up the minutes and reps that Exum would have had. The question becomes, if Kyrie Irving, who has been limited to open the preseason because of recovering from his own offseason surgery, if that lingers at all, or if he misses time, or if Luka with this calf strain keeps him limited at all as the season starts, that's where you start to really stress your depth a little bit more, because that means like Dinwiddie has to play more, and then you got to go to one of the other guys more. But for now, I think they'll be okay. That's a pretty good group of guys to be working with to fill. It's not even a ton of minutes off the bench, right? You're really talking 10 to 15 minutes behind both Luka and Kyrie each. So you're not filling a ton of minutes. This isn't like, all right, now we got to get a starter in here for 35 minutes a night. So I think they'll be okay.
All right. All right. So the Mavs will get through that. Now, the Raptors, bigger deal, RJ Barrett out for preseason dealing with a separated shoulder. But as long as it's just preseason and it doesn't leak into the regular season, and I know Toronto's not expected to be a great team, and we tend to dismiss the teams that aren't expected to be good, but still, RJ Barrett is a guy who on any given night can drop a ton of points. It's not out of the question for RJ Barrett to lead the Raptors in scoring this season. That's certainly within the realm of possibility here. And I thought he looked really good with them after that trade from the Knicks last season. So this is a big deal, but as long as he's back for the regular season, and we'll see what the timeline looks like if he can get that done.
Yeah, and important to remember, much like we just talked about, they're also dealing with some other injuries too. You got Bruce Brown is out there. That's another guy who plays roughly the same positions as RJ Barrett. Then you have Jacoby Walter, their first round pick, another guy who was in the mix to be a rotation guy at the 2. He's also out. So now you add you add Barrett to the mix. So that means you're going to have to probably slide Ochai Agbaje in a little bit more. Maybe Jonathan Bobo plays a little bit more, one of their rookies. You could even go, Emmanuel Quickly has played off the ball a lot, so you could go with Davion Mitchell or Jamal Shed more and play with more dual ball handler lineup. So they'll figure it out. It's a chance for them to explore a little. But as Masai Ujiri said, this is a rebuilding season for Toronto. They're not running from that. They will really be open to that. So they're not going to rush Barrett back, and I don't think they're super worried about him being out long term or anything. So if anything, this means more minutes for Grady Dick probably as the primary wing player there. As Scotty Barnes will be in that starting group as more or less the power forward. So yeah, it's interesting. I kind of feel like Toronto might be a postseason team, meaning play-in tournament. But that's a lot more to do with somebody has to be the 9 and 10 seeds in the East. They can't all miss the playoffs. So,
but do they even want to be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like we're going to talk about we're going to talk about the draft prospects in just a minute here. Like I'm looking at the draft prospects. I'm hearing what people that we respect that really look. I'm not a draft person in terms of evaluating talent and really digging through college basketball and stuff like that. That's not necessarily my forte, but people that I've been reading, people that I respect that really know this stuff are like already getting hyped about this draft and how good this draft class is. The tank race could be a thing. Like, I don't know if you're the Raptors, you may be better off trying to find a way to miss out on the play-in tournament this year.
Problem is, then you've got to be worse than Washington and Detroit and Charlotte. And,
good luck.
And the Bulls and the Hawks. And I'm forgetting somebody probably here. But yeah, it's not going to be easy to drop into the bottom 5 in the East. Normally we talk about like, it's not going to be easy to make the top 4 in the conference or whatever. It's like, it's not going to be easy to be a bottom team. But yeah, it's, we'll see what happens. I think, Barrett sounds like probably be okay to start the regular season or right around there. And then that's, go forward with, I think a starting group of Barnes, Barrett, Quickly, Pirtle, and Grady Dick is interesting. It's not, it's not terrible, right? That's some guys who could play there. It becomes, if one of those guys is missing or like Brown's already out, how steep is the drop off to the backup players and that sort of stuff. That's where you're going to figure things out from there. But yeah, it's a kind of a fun group in Toronto. I was listening to Blake Murphy the other day, does a wonderful job covering the Raptors. And one of the things he talked about was the Raptors are not set up for this to be like a 4 or 5 year rebuilding process because they've already paid Barnes. They've got Barrett under contract. They've got Pirtle. They just paid Quickly. Like they are set up for this to be more of a, hey, in a couple years, we've got to be already on our way back up. So that lends to me like they're they're not going to like this year. They may do some tanking, but after this year, you got to start moving a little bit more towards being a pretty good team.
By the way, RJ Barrett, just to show everybody the difference in between the Knicks and the Raptors
so
and his
good.
stats. My goodness, he went from 42% from the field to 55%. Somebody cue Sammy Hagar. 33% from three with the Knicks, 39% with the Raptors. I mean, look at that, just across the board. The rebounds go up, the assists go up, and he goes up to 22 points per game. Man, it's like when Aquaman gets back in the water or something like that. You get RJ Barrett back in Canada, and suddenly his powers are activated.
Yeah, to add to that, then followed it up with a really strong summer for Team Canada at the Olympics. He was one of their better players throughout that. And this is no, it's not like, oh my gosh, RJ Barrett, he's living up to all the potential we ever thought he was going to be. When, he was in the mix to be the number one draft pick at one point in time ahead of that draft and everything. But this is also not this wasn't a 10-game sample size. This was 32 games, basically 1,000 minutes. Like, this is enough where you could say, okay, there's some good stuff here. And there were moments where he was pretty good with the Knicks. His second season with the Knicks, you still got it on the board here, was really very solid. 44% from the field, 40% from three. So that's a strong second season there. It just kind of, as the Knicks got better and had other guys, he was relegated so much to the stand in the corner and wait for the ball to come role. There's a little bit of that in Toronto, but he is a bigger part of, hey, we're going to make sure you get your reps. We're going to play through you a lot. And I think that he's just the kind of guy who needs to probably be consistently engaged in the game versus, hey, just float around the arc and wait for it to come. He's probably going to be a usage guy. And this is, so far so good. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he continues to grow into with Toronto.
All right, let's take a look at this next story here. Bradley Beal, he made a podcast appearance, and this came out yesterday, and he talked a bit about the situation that landed him ultimately in Phoenix and how Phoenix was not like on his radar at all. It was Milwaukee and it was Miami, and he thought it was going to be Miami, and then he said Miami decided not to trade for him. Like they decided they weren't going to do that. And then with Milwaukee, he was concerned that the Bucks were going to have to give up Chris Middleton in order to get him. And he's kind of thinking, well, if I go there, I want to play with Chris Middleton. He said Phoenix kind of came from out of nowhere. And again, I'm paraphrasing all the stuff he was talking about, but Phoenix kind of came from out of nowhere. And his first response was, well, they can't do that. Like, they're not going to give up Booker to get me, right? So what? So they can't do it. And then he found out like, oh, they're willing to do like Ayton and stuff and figure out ways to make it work. And he basically said like the Suns went after him. Like, I mean, Booker was texting him, Durant was texting him. They flew to New York to go meet with him. They had Frank Vogel, who was the coach at the time, fly out to meet with him and talk about how they were going to use him and all that sort of stuff. And he said he left the meeting in New York with the Suns and just told his agent, yeah, let's do this. Let's get this done. So he was expecting to go to either Miami, and it sounds like Miami, it was on the Miami side that they said, nah, we're not gonna go down this path. We're not gonna do this. And the Milwaukee side was the other piece that he thought may come through. And then suddenly, next thing he knew, it was Phoenix.
Sorry, I wasn't, not that I wasn't smiling at the Beal stuff, but if anybody noticed, I just smiled and laughed. There's a little girl jumping in puddles out in the street in front of her house right now. So like a little moment of levity here as we wait.
A little
on
Peppa Pig out there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Except there's not a lot of mud in these ones right now. This is just mostly puddles, but she was having a good old time. So everybody sees me doing that later on the internet. Maybe I just have an idea what I might do for the next couple hours.
As the storm hits, Keith is going to be out there with an umbrella and a raincoat on, jumping around.
I'll live stream it.
There you go.
So there's kind of a little bit to unpack there, right? People might be like, well, why did he have to talk to his agent about let's do it? Well, remember, he had a no trade clause, right? Or still does have a no trade clause. So Bradley Beal fully kind of controlled that process to the end extent of, am I going to go or not? So, yeah, and it sounds like he, without saying it directly, basically was like, if Chris Middleton was in the deal, I was going to kill the deal to the Bucks. And it's important to note, this all would have happened before the Damian Lillard trade, because that was that trade happened way after
Right.
this one. So who knows if the Damian Lillard trade even gets made then? Does it get made in the same way? Like who knows how that comes together? And then so yeah, it's just kind of it's interesting to think through. Like there's all these, it's like in Infinity War, right? When it's the ancient ones, like or what was she, Sorcerer Supreme, right? Where she's just
Hmm.
like she with Bruce Banner, she like pings off the and if you take it from here, this creates this branch timeline. Like
Right.
you could
Right.
have added this weird timeline where Bradley Beal got traded, to the Bucks, and we'd heard the Heat backed away, and I think smartly so. They didn't want
Yeah.
that contract on the books, and I think they were also like, yeah, we like you, but we like Damian Lillard a lot more. And they
Yeah.
obviously pursued that all the way to the end. And then my guess is once it came down to Washington knowing, all right, we can make this trade and then we can flip Chris Paul for Jordan Poole. Like we're gonna get this moving. Now we can question the collective wisdom of trading Chris Paul for Jordan Poole, and if that
Sure.
was the right move, or should they have just kept Chris Paul and let the contract kind of expire there on its own, or waive him like ultimately the Warriors did. But yeah, it's interesting at least to think about just the paths that could have been taken. And this one to me is a little bit more than they could have done this in trade, because Bradley Beal was very open and Bradley Beal had a lot of control over the process.
Right.
Where there's a little bit more meat on that bone there because of that.
Yeah, he even sounded, maybe I don't want to say disappointed, but a little bit surprised that like Miami was saying, "Okay, we're out." But I give Miami credit for looking at that, and sure, Damian Lillard was certainly part of that decision making, but for looking at that Bradley Beal contract, because I actually think Beal fits better with Miami than he does with Phoenix, just in terms of skill set
Sure.
duplication. If we're talking about if you're big three, right, is if that's the kind of roster build you're going for, is Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Bradley Beal. I think there's less skill set duplication than Beal, Booker, and KD, who all kind of the best thing they provide is their scoring, right? Like that's what they're all great at, and they're great at a lot of other things too. But that's like their main thing. Whereas with the Heat, you've got Bam Adebayo, who's going to give you the defense, the rebound. He's going to be passing as a big, and all the other things that he brings to the table. So I think that's less skill set duplication in Miami, but good on Miami for recognizing like, hey, this guy has not played an 82 game season since like 2018, and this no trade clause is still going to be a thing. So if this does not work, we're going to have a really tough time pivoting away from this. But as you mentioned, the Damian Lillard piece was probably a big part of that thought process too.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're on the Suns-ish, I guess. Well, we're on the
Uh-huh.
Suns, right? Bradley Beal's on the
Oh
Suns.
no, you're going to talk about ISO Iguodaro. Here we go.
Oso, my
So,
guy.
sorry. Why
Just
did I added the
they
I
should
from the end of his
ISO
name.
Oso.
They
No,
should
they should
ISO Oso.
ISO Oso more. No, yeah, he played great again last night. Had
He did.
another really strong game. But I was going to talk about him. You're absolutely right. So Oso, let's go. Tyus Jones. Last night they played their regulars minus Yusuf Nurkic. He's dealing with some minor injury.
Finger for
yeah,
Nurkic.
that's what it is. You're right. Tyus Jones, what a difference in just they're so much better organized right now than they were at points last year. I get it. It's preseason. We don't want to go crazy, but there are little things you can take from the preseason. He's just got command of the offense. And even when he's not on ball, he's pointing things out off ball, like telling guys where to go. And I think it's him being, I don't know what year he's in, but a veteran point guard. The guys listen to him, right? Like they're like, okay, like there was a play, Devin Booker had it on the wing, and Bradley Beal was coming over to like the top of the key, and Jones was like, no, go to the baseline. And like Beal went to the baseline, they brought KD up and they ran a little 2-man game that way, where if Beal was there, you would have just had another guy kind of in the way a little bit. And then Beal ended up he could have had they went a different direction with the play, but he would have been wide open for a shot on the baseline if they'd gone to him. So even just Tyus Jones knows how to play, and he's just got them so well organized that I think that's going to make a major difference for this Phoenix team. And then the drop off is not very much from him to Monty Morris, because he's also really good and knows how to play and can keep the team organized. And those two guys are super low turnover guys as well. So I'm higher on Phoenix this year than I was a year ago. And last year, a lot of it was I just can't quit the amount of talent here. This year, I just think everything fits and makes a little bit more sense.
They had more buzz around them last year because last year was like whoa, they got all three of these guys and this is going to be awesome and all that. But I do think they're a better team this year than they were last year, especially if your guy Oso ends up being a night in, night out thing, which
so good.
He might be.
He's really good. Yeah, he's gonna force his way on the floor.
Well,
like I don't know how they're not gonna be able.
He's got to get minutes with Plumlee and Nurkic there, and so that'll be interesting to see how does But those guys aren't going to stay. I mean, Nurkic isn't healthy right now. He's going to get an opportunity. He's going to impress when he gets that opportunity.
And shout out their other rookie, their first round rookie, Ryan Dunn. Looks, his defense shooting was his calling card, but he's making shots right now, and his shooting form looks improved. And if he's going to make shots, then we'll go with that. And then I want to call out I can't remember who the commenter was. I apologize. On our last video, the phrase the Wizards GM Will Dawkins used was they're still in the deconstruction phase. When I couldn't come up with what the word he used was, so they're still in that deconstruction phase was what he said, which means they're still like figuring out who the guys are going to be that they're going to build around. So shout out to that guy for that correction. I really appreciate that.
All right, let's finish up with this. ESPN revealed their top 100 draft prospects. I mean, obviously exciting stuff. This upcoming draft class, this is going to be one that we're going to be talking about all season long. Everybody's excited about it. And Keith, I think for as much as we've talked about, the CBA and what it may have done to weaken the trade market and things like that, this draft class fuels my hope that we're going to see a trade market develop earlier this year than normal, because we're going to see teams that are watching some of these players like Cooper Flag. They're going to be trying to capture the flag, and they're going to be in positions. I'm not saying specifically the Raptors, but kind of like the Raptors, where they're thinking, we're going to win too many games. Let's get some of these guys off of our team and try to drop down and increase our draft lottery odds here. So I do think that this is going to be something to keep an eye on, and it's going to have an impact in not just paying attention to college basketball and these draft prospects and everything. Certainly we will, but I think these guys are good enough to where it's going to make an impact on the bottom of the NBA's tank race.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I look at a team like Portland, for example. If they have the ability to move on from a veteran or two, why would you hang on to those guys when what's an extra win or two in January worth? Well, probably a negative, right? It's probably maybe cost you a couple ping pong balls. So, so I'm with you where I think we could see, teams potentially move on from some guys to, hey, we're going to bottom this thing out early. And I think fans, especially once the college season starts, right ahead of Thanksgiving and that Thanksgiving period where there's all the early season tournaments and the like, and they start seeing some of these guys, I think fans are going to be like, please stop winning games. Like, let's really, bottom out. The top 5 guys on the board, Cooper Flag, number 1. He's the one everybody knows. The Rutgers duo of Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, 2 and 3. Then you got VJ Edgecombe at Baylor, and then Nolan Traore, who's coming out of France. I've talked to multiple scouts who have all told me any one of these 5 guys would have been the number 1 pick this past draft, and all 5 would have been on there, like they would have been the 1 through 5 picks. And that's come from people who like Zachary Reese-Hachey and like Alex Sarr. That's just how much they believe in these 5 kids.
That's crazy.
It's going to be very hard for somebody to kind of break into this top 5, I think, but we're not going to sit here and read the ESPN article to you guys. Go check it out. I always use this top 100 too. It's a great kind of entry point if you're like, I don't know a lot about the draft. I don't follow this, months ahead of these guys ever playing a college game and the like. This is a great entry point to be like, all right, who are the people I need to kind of know? And it just puts some guys on your radar. I think they cover about the top 25 guys with at least a paragraph or two. which is kind of fun. And then they get into then it's just straight rankings, 26 to 100, and you're going to see some names. Even if you're a very casual college fan, you're going to be, wow, that guy's lower than I thought he would be as a returning college player. But it's because of how strong the incoming freshman talent and international talent is. So it's it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this class develop and play over the next couple years and the like.
That's pretty amazing when you think of it, that these top five, like how many years can you think of where the next year's draft class, the top five would all go 1 through 5 in the prior years? You know what I mean? Like there isn't that number one guy or even a two guy that would get in there. That's pretty incredible. You know, like Zachary Sachet, if he was in this draft, at best he would go 6. And I guess if you want to do an eye the beholder thing, Alex Sarr and some of these guys that we were talking about, none of these guys could crack the top 5 here. That says, and I know this past year's draft class was not known to be very deep or particularly very good at the top, and so that's probably a factor here as well. But still, that's pretty impressive and says a lot about this year's class.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I mean, it is. Everybody knows Cooper Flagg because we've been hearing about him for 2 to 3 years now. But there's, again, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Nolan Traore. Those are the other 4 guys to certainly know at the top 5 in this group. But there's a lot of kids who can play after those guys too. A lot of really good players. The cool thing is, like, Duke is loaded as per usual. North Carolina has some talent there. UConn's got guys. So a lot of the big programs pulled in these top recruits. So you're going to kind of see all of them quite a bit this upcoming college season. And this is a little different. There's not a there are good international players. Nolan Traore and Hugo Gonzalez are probably the 2 best international players. But this isn't one where it's like right now, at the middle of October, there are not like 7 of the top 15 or international guys. That can be a little harder to find games for, a little harder to see. Yeah. You're watching mostly clips and highlights. Most of these guys are going to be playing at colleges and playing at big time colleges too. So you'll be able to see these guys quite a bit. It's going to be a really fun season tracking all these guys too.
Well, it's certainly going to be something to keep an eye on as the season goes along here, and we'll see what kind of impact it makes in the NBA. Keith, I guess we'll let you go get ready, get hunkered down, prepare for the storm, and hopefully, I'm just assuming we're probably not going to have a show tomorrow. Obviously, if something changes and we can, then we will. But fingers crossed, and I'll look if we can't do a show Friday, I'll put something out in the comment section over on or the community section on YouTube to let everybody know, like, hey, we're not going to have our show on Friday, but I'll keep everybody as up to date as we can. And Keith, of course, thoughts with you, and hope that everything goes as smoothly as possible given the storm.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and again, thank you to everyone who's reached out. I don't even know how many. It's more than I can count. Have reached out in any number of different ways, whether it be through the show comments, through email, the handful of people who have texted as well that that we have personal relationships with that also watch this show, and then just the number of people through Twitter and the like. Just can't thank you guys enough. But keep in mind, we're going to be okay. Like, we're going to make it through. There's an awful lot of people over on the Gulf side, like in the Tampa area. They're going to lose everything, and it's going to be really tough. And if you find yourself, you want to help and you don't know what to do, and you're really far away, you're in California, you're in Massachusetts, and you don't know what to do, find an organization that seems trustworthy, that you believe in, and if you find yourself moved to help, try to help out, through that way, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to need help. Now, there's already a lot of people all over that need help from Helene. So these hurricanes are, they're just awful, massive forces of nature, and we know what we sign up for when we live here, and that's part of it. But we're going to be okay. The Smith family will be fine. It's just don't direct all your positive energy to all of us here in Central Florida, and we'll make it through on the other side just fine.
All right. Well, on that, everybody, we appreciate you joining the show today. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.